If you watched my last video on the Atomic Arch AUR malware campaign, you know the AUR had a rough few weeks. 3 waves, 1,600 plus compromised packages, an EBF rootkit, the works. So when I saw the headline KDE Linux drops AUR over security concerns, I believed it instantly. It made perfect sense. Good follow-up story, write the script, move on. Except I went and read the actual source, the blog post this is all based on. And the real story is a lot weirder and honestly a lot more interesting. Let's get into it. Quick context if you didn't catch the AUR malware video. In mid-June, attackers started adopting orphan AUR packages, software whose original maintainers walked away, and slipping malicious install scripts into them. It happened in waves. It got nasty. eBPF rootkit nasty. And the Arch Linux team had to suspend new AUR account registrations to slow it down. A couple of weeks before all that, a separate but related story started circulating. KDE Linux, KDE's own in-progress operating system, announced it had dropped the Arch user repository from its build pipeline. Most of the coverage on this, and I mean most of it, leads with security. The line you'll see repeated across multiple outlets is that AUR has a substantially lower level of security than Arch's main repos, and that malware has been found in AUR packages multiple times recently. That's a real quote. It is genuinely something KDE developer Nate Graham wrote, and every outlet covering the story treats it as the reason KDE Linux walked away from AUR. Here's the problem. That quote is from an internal KDE task page Graham wrote roughly a year earlier, making the case for eventually dropping AUR. It's not the explanation for why it actually happened this month. Those are two different documents, and almost nobody covering this story separated them. I went to the primary source, Graham's own This Month in KDE Linux post for May 2026 on his blog Pointiest Stick. And the real account of how AUR actually got dropped is kind of perfect in a very Linux way. KDE's Linux build process used to work like this: generate Arch packages, then have a tool called mkosi install them. This month, a contributor named Hattie Choker finished porting that whole pipeline over to KDE's own KDE Builder tool, so KDE software gets compiled directly instead of going through Arch packaging at all. Faster builds, better caching, more consistency with how KDE devs build software on their own machines. That's the actual headline infrastructure change. Separately, and this is the part that nobody's reporting, KDE Linux had also just been through a rough month of upstream Linux kernel vulnerabilities. So a few KDE devs, Graham, Adrian, Vovik, and Hadi Choker, did a security audit of everything KDE Linux ships. They went package by package, dropped the Zen kernel because it wasn't doing much they hadn't already configured themselves, pulled out insecure or unused kernel modules, removed a stack of packages nobody needed. You get the idea. One of the things on that chopping block was a package called fenrir, a console screen reader. And here's the punchline. In Graham's own words, fenrir turns out was embarrassingly not used at all for various technical reasons. Fenrir was the last thing in KDE Linux's build process that actually required pulling from the AUR. The second they deleted it, the AUR dependency just fell away. Graham's exact words: deleting fenrir allowed us to completely remove our usage of the AUR, which had been a source of infrastructure instability in the past. Infrastructure instability, not the malware story you just watched my last video about. Those are different problems that happen to collide in the same monthly report. Now, to be fair to the security framing, it's not wrong that AUR has security trade-offs, and it's not wrong that Graham has been vocal about wanting off the AUR for exactly that reason for a long time. That older task page is real. The concerns in it are real, and frankly, some of them are reasons I'd want any production build pipeline off AUR too. AUR explicitly does not vet the packages it hosts, and that's the whole trade-off that makes it useful and risky at the same time. And we just watched that trade-off get exploited at scale. But the actual proximate cause, the thing that happened in May 2026 that finally pulled the trigger, was an unrelated infrastructure cleanup that happened to remove the last dependency blocking the move. Security was the long-term motivation. A deleted screen reader package was the actual mechanism. This is worth getting right because it tells you something true about how software projects actually work versus how tech news likes to frame them. Security scare causes dramatic policy change is a better headline than we deleted an unused package and it turned out to be a dependency nobody remembered. But only one of those is what happened. And one more thing worth being precise about, because I've seen this get muddled too. This only affects how KDE Linux itself is built. If you're an actual KDE Linux user or you're running Arch, Manjaro, EndeavourOS, whatever, you can still use the AUR exactly like you always have. This is purely about what KDE's own build pipeline depends on. Nobody's AUR access has changed. What I actually find more interesting than the AUR headline is the audit itself. This wasn't a one-off panic response. It was a methodical pass through the whole system. Kernel modules that could block secure boot down the line, an unmaintained and known insecure fuse library, kernel modules nobody used. That's the kind of housekeeping that doesn't make headlines, but is genuinely what keeps a young distro project from accumulating cruft for the next 5 years. So if you came here expecting KDE saw the AUR malware story and panicked, that's not what happened. And now you know the more accurate version. If you're running KDE Linux yourself, none of this changes your day-to-day. If you're running Arch and you watched my last video, the audit advice from that last one still stands. Check your packages, watch the AUR general mailing list, and don't blindly trust orphaned package adoptions. Links to Graham's original blog post are in the description, like always, so you can go read the primary source yourself instead of taking some YouTuber's word for it on the internet. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to my channel, and it would really help me out. You can buy me a coffee. My Ko-Fi link is in the description. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.